Hello, hello, hello. I am sitting here by myself, so I'm waiting to see if I'm going to have any company tonight and whether or not we're going to have a discussion on the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honorée, Fanonne Jeffers. So give me a couple of minutes and I'll be right back.
Here we go. Hey.
Hey.
How have you been?
Oh, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm trying to make it. This is some crazy weather we're having down here.
Yeah.
And feel like I have some like cold symptoms. I'm like, I know I ain't been around nobody. So
Right.
I'm going with the cold.
Yeah. I take my oregano oil.
Oh, you do? Oh, cool.
Yeah. Ever since a few years ago when I had that like super bad cough that lasted forever and the doctors couldn't help me. And, I finally came across this alternative approach, which is a mixture of oregano oil, coconut oil, and it stopped the cough. And, my pulmonary doctor, who's the head of the hospital's pulmonary department, did not believe that it was the oregano oil that had done it, but he had not done anything that had helped me. So ever since then, if I feel like I'm starting to get a cold or something like that, I'll pop one of my capsules and takes it right out.
Okay, so you put it in a vegetable cap?
Yeah, I make my own. It's like for about 3 or 4 drops of oregano essential oil, and then the rest coconut oil.
Wow. See, I would never have thought of putting it in a capsule. I would just like put it in a spoon and chug.
Well, you know what? It really it will burn you. It's a very potent.
Oh yeah, I know. I really know.
Yeah.
I use oregano oil in my toothpaste, so
Oh.
I make. So
Okay.
I might have to do some experimentation. If you don't see me next week, you know what happened. I was a little too enthusiastic. No.
And they do sell the pre-made capsules, but I feel like they're not as effective as the making up your own batch.
I agree. It's more cost effective too. People just don't know how easy it is, because you get a bag of 300, whatever size, 00 or O.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Right. It sounds like a lot of work, but really it's not. Hey, Karen. We can't hear you. Oh, you're muted.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, I only could stay on for an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make it fast. Then
we'll make it fast, and it may work out well anyway. I mean, I don't know if Leonie and Kim, I don't know. We haven't seen Kim in a few weeks, so I don't know what's going on with her. I did get a message from Nicole.
Oh, how's she doing?
I think she's doing okay. She said she plans to come back. So
okay. For this session?
Huh?
For this session?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she said she would see us soon. So
that's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know. So an hour may be enough if it's just the 3 of us tonight. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And I will. Well, you know what? Somebody else do the introduction, since we don't have facilitators. Why am I always doing it?
Because you're so good.
Nope, I refuse tonight. I'm having a strike.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Gia?
Oh my God. I'm so unprepared. I'm so unprepared. You know, you need to text me first before you drop these bombs on me. Who are we?
Say welcome.
Welcome everyone to this, which meeting number is this? This is meeting number
7, I think. Yeah.
7. Yeah.
The session 17.
Session 17.
Session
yeah.
17. And I am drawing a complete blank. We are reading the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois and by Honorée Jeffers. And tonight we will be discussing Song 3, Deep Country and Creatures in the Garden. Welcome.
Welcome. Yay. And who are you?
I'm Georgette Moses, stumbling over here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Perfect. And I'm Michelle Odom. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. Happy to be here.
Okay, and I'm Karen Johnson, and I'm located in Salt Lake City.
Welcome.
Hey. Okay. So, I don't let's see, I don't really have anything. I mean, I do, but I don't. I'm not as prepared as I thought I would be, since we're just coming back after a break, because of course, somehow whenever I have too much time on my hands, I end up getting myself overloaded. So, but an old friend of mine, Leon Salter, asked me if I wanted to do a book group with him. And so, of course, I said no to a book group. So we're going to start having discussions starting this coming Sunday on Begin Again by Eddie Glaude, one of Eddie Glaude's books on James Baldwin. So looking forward to that. Sundays at 12:30 under the Reading for Change banner. So,
and that's Eastern time?
Yeah. So, of course, you guys are to join us. You feel like it. Gio, I know you're already in the Reading for Change private group, which is now called Cluster 3, because you participated with me and Rick in the book on debt. Were you there for the Coming Plague also?
No, I watched you guys, and then I would make comments on your video.
So Karen, I will send you. I'm not sure if you're in the Cluster 3 private.
I know you sent me something. You sent me some information about that. Read Again. I think I saw you send it to me.
Okay. Well, I probably sent you an invitation just to watch the event.
Oh, okay.
But there's a private group called Cluster 3, and that's where I post the link to come into the chat.
Okay.
So I'll send you that.
Okay, thank you. And you all already started reading it?
Yeah, we just, for this first meeting, we're just reading the introduction.
Oh, okay.
Which is about 20, no, maybe closer to 30 pages.
Oh, 30.
Yeah. So, but I think the book is really gonna be good.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had the book. I bought it when it was published. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always went into the bookstore getting a book.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have the paperback, which I think is maybe about a year old. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, tonight the topic is the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. And I did want to point out that, today is W.E.B's birthday.
Yeah.
And that just feels kind of or spiritual or something to me. That we are having all these discussions related to him. And it happens to be his birthday. So, happy birthday. In fact, I think it is, let me see. I think it is, let me share my screen. How do I do it? His 154th birthday. Okay. And the only reason I happen to know that, can you guys see the picture?
No.
Yeah. Okay. There. Oh, somebody made him a cake.
Somebody made him a cake on his 151st. So I had to calculate when was that. And so this year would be his one. So his 151st was in 2019.
Okay.
So this would be his 154th because he was born February 23rd, 1868.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, I don't think of him as being that old. I think he died in 1963, but I've always thought of him as being more of a contemporary. But but he was old when he died.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, but 1868, that's back there.
Right. Long time.
Mm-hmm.
During the Reconstruction.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, but he was like in his 90s, when he died. So he saw a lot of stuff.
Right. He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that there's a section here in our reading where Ailey's uncle and his young friend, Uncle Ruth, go run up the stairs, 3 flights of stairs to meet W.B. And he opens the door and they said, well, what do you want? He said, what do you want? To meet you? And he said, well, you have. And closed the door. Like, okay.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't be surprised if he done that in real life because I heard little stories about his personality.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. So
abrupt.
Abrupt and sometimes name calling. Like Runoko used to tell me that because Runoko was was a Garveyite. And so he taught me that, and you all might know too, that that Du Bois had issues with Marcus Garvey, even called him names, called him an ape, and what have you. So yes, I appreciate his politics, but also they were contradictions in terms of some of how he
class issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. When I read that, I said I wouldn't be surprised if he actually had done that.
Yeah. He was a complicated man.
Yeah.
And nobody understood him but his woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else? So what are we reading? Deep Country. Song 3. So song 3, which is about deep country, right? Is the story of Kiné, the African girl, and how her family, how she ended up being captured and eventually enslaved, and and ultimately is one of the ancestors, ancestors. So, anything striking about that?
Right. So for me, so for me, with regards to this book, I mean, I like Honorée Jeffers. I like her book, her novel, but for me, it definitely seems like 2 different kind of stories and 2 different kind of writings are going on. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the songs, you have the historical. It seemed like a historical fiction aspect of it, and it's mostly narrative driven. And I really enjoy the songs. And in fact, a lot of these characters, I would like to see more of them and read more of them. But there's, a lot of gaps in between. And so we don't get those kind of connections. Well, what happened to, for example, what happened to Miko? Or I want to learn more about beauty and whatever. So it's large gaps in between. And then when we move to the contemporary section with Ailey, and Ailey drives the narrative because she's the center character where we learn about the family, right? But it seems like it's a different narrative, a different story, a different novel. Because it seems more like a YA, young adult kind of novel to me, particularly with the dialogue in what we're reading now. She's in high school. And so when we shift like that, it takes me a while to really just switch to get my rhythm in terms of reading these two, when you compare the two, to move into that kind. And I don't particularly like YA novels. When I was a K-12 public school teacher, a middle school teacher, high school teacher, etc., elementary, I was into those books because I was always looking for books for my students. But at this point, as a senior citizen, really, to be honest, some people who are adults like YA, but it's difficult for me to really get into the story. And so the two stories, while I like Ailey's story, I just, it took a lot for me to sustain my interest. So that's where I'm coming from with regards to.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess I kind of feel similarly. I mean, I'm usually the one trying to avoid fiction in the first place. But if I'm going to read fiction, I'd rather read historical fiction. So, this is okay. But I think, the thing about the young adult coming of age kind of thing going on is that, the issues, the problems, the concerns that are on a teenager's mind, are just not our pressing issues of the moment. So, I think that's why it does take a bit to kind of get your head back in that space, try to remember, what you were experiencing, what I was experiencing several decades ago. I won't call the number, Gio. It's been a minute.
Okay.
So yeah. But also, yeah, I've lived really all over the country except the South. And so I don't really have a natural resonance with the Southern experience. And so these chapters in particular, where they're giving you what I would call the rhythm of life, because I posted that song at some point as Ailey was describing the daily rhythm of being in deep country. Is not really my experience. So, there's that.
Right.
Well, you both bring up some very interesting points. And Karen, you really put words to the disjointedness that I was feeling in transitioning between the song and then the narrative of Ailey. And it is a coming of age story through her eyes.
Right.
And when we have the songs and then her story, I'm trying to find the connection, right? There should be some connection in this historical fiction portion that relates to whatever we're getting ready to be exposed to in Ailey's life as she's developing, and the other characters are being developed in the story. But we're still early, so perhaps there's more cohesion coming.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm looking for a connection, a continuity between what we've already been told historically and then
Right.
what's happening in the present. So we have two timelines,
Right.
kind of running simultaneously like a multiverse,
Right.
kind of thing going on. So, I'm just
Right.
suspending expectations so I can enjoy the journey.
Well, okay. And that's a good point. I really appreciate you bringing that up, having that linkage between the historical something, if it was like a key issue that happened with beauty, for example, in the historical section, that, perhaps one of the characters could mention my great great grandmama. I remember,
Right.
she spends time with Nana. So it could, and this seemed to be Nana's side of the family, right? So Nana could have perhaps pulled out a picture and said, this is whoever, or this, I remember, how like in
Right.
there was constantly those passing down of oral stories and history. So that's a good point that you make, that could have been that way. And I wonder if books such as this that deals with either intergenerational or multi-generational characters or storylines, I think, and especially when they're thick books, it does take a long time to get the connection, and it really is difficult for a reader to really want to be sustained. Like this past summer, I remember I was telling you about Goodreads as a way to do this. So this past summer, just real quick, I don't want to get off the topic. One of the books on Goodreads group it's a Black reading group that we had to read, The Old Drift and this was an American woman she's born in Namibia. Wait a minute, was it one of the African countries?
Namibia?
What did you say?
Namibia?
Oh yeah, I think that's the country. And it was a big book, over 500 pages, and it was intergenerational. And so that a lot of the people kind of dropped off who were in the reading group in terms of the Goodreads where you write your comments and you have ahead of time, because it took a while to make the connections. But when it started finally making the connections, it wound up being a worthwhile story. This particular book, The Old Drift, was highly acclaimed, and the author won a book award. But what I'm seeing is a pattern that it takes a while to get into these different stories and then make connections, and that you have to have the patience to sustain your interests. It has to be written in a way to sustain one's interest. And so if I wasn't a part of that book club or this one, I would have had this on my DNF list of it. I'm done.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying it though. I don't know if I would stick with it if I were reading it alone. But I'm definitely enjoying it enough to be able to get through it with the group. And I find that because she's not necessarily putting in those direct sentences that you're talking about, Karen, I find that I'm trying to figure out for myself what the connections are. And so in these particular chapters, I would say, we're learning about Kiné, which is how the family first came to be rooted in Georgia. And then Ailey is taking her summer vacation in Georgia. because that's, that's where the roots are. So, but yeah, no, it takes a while. It takes a while. So, on song 3, on the story of Kiné, I don't know how to say her name. How are you guys saying her name?
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those apostrophes throw me off. I thought the passage, I don't know if I can find it, but the description of the middle passage, the description of the journey from Africa to America, I thought was just, really pretty eloquently done. It's kind of really.
The other page.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it in song 3. Y'all talk. I'm gonna look for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of her description of what happened in Africa and the transatlantic slave trade. It definitely seemed like she has done her research in attempting to portray some level of historical accuracy with that. So when you read historical history on this time frame, as well as when you need the history on this time frame, or even the slave narratives, like I'm thinking of Olado Equiano story, and he was an enslaved person who wrote about his slave experience from being captured in Africa to all the way being on the Middle Passage and coming to this country. And so when you read these different slave narratives as well as the history, it seems to reflect that she did her research.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that she traveled to Senegal when she was doing her research on Phyllis Wheatley.
Oh.
Yeah, because she has a book of poetry on Phyllis Wheatley. It's one of her areas of expertise. And she wanted to trace Phyllis Wheatley's background to the African country in which she lived. And so I know Jeffries actually had gone back there to, get additional information on Phyllis Wheatley and make that connection.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Look at 135. I'll read it. The middle of the page. Next came a journey she could not track because she could not see the moon or the sun from the dark hold of the ship. At times, she was pulled up onto the deck into light. Other times, sailors with appetites visited the female side of the hold, turning women and girls into profane vessels. Kiné was spared this physically, but she bore witness. One of her comrades, if she could call her that, was tossed overboard after she died, succumbing to her bowels. The sailors threw her into the sea without the sheets used as shrouds for the 2 white men who had perished on board. The sharks tore at Kiné's comrade, the water filling with her meat. It was the nature of those sea-swimming things. Brutality seeks what is nearest. Oh yeah, I just.
Yeah, that's a good passage. You definitely did some research and understanding that aspect of it, even with the part about the sharks, because if you study, I don't know if you all know that with the transatlantic slave trade, that the slave trade changed the migration patterns of sharks. So they started following those slave ships from the west coast of Africa here to this hemisphere.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fact.
That's a
I don't think
disturbing
I knew
fact.
that.
That's very disturbing.
Right. So you definitely see the impact of the transatlantic slave trade. That's one of the impacts, where you changing the migration patterns of the sharks.
That's a lot of bodies tossed overboard for
Right.
that.
Exactly. Tossed overboard, or some even jumped, right? Yeah.
Wow. Huh. And then that passage you read, Michelle, that brutality seeks what's nearest. I think that's a phrase, a powerful phrase that is one of the connections in some of the things that happen in the other timeline, right? Talking about, I'm thinking about Ailey when she's reminiscing about when Nana and Miss Dolores would leave her with Gandhi. So brutality seeks what's nearest, and she was nearest.
And also the way the imam betrayed Kiné's father, which is what led to them being. He lied on him and said they ate pig.
And just everything. Didn't wash their feet, drinking water during Ramadan. Just everything they could think of.
Right.
Like, really? Nobody saw this?
Hey, he wasn't praying 5 times a day.
Right.
Wow.
No, and so and we still, I mean, maybe we'll learn it at some later time, but we still don't really know what was his motivation. What was why did he do that?
Well, so I think for money, right?
I think Asatu's father was what did they? I forgot the term, but he's a he was like
a preacher, Marabout.
Right, Marabout. And so he and the imam had bad blood. And so I think the imam saw an opportunity to do his family some harm through Asatu and her husband and family. So I mean, what's worse? You're the father, and you can't help your daughter and son-in-law and your grandchildren who are whisked away, some serving the mom's
and
household,
all your concubines.
So so you've just been dealt a social, physical, and emotional blow you will not recover from. So that's really evil. He must have really hated that man.
Yeah,
because that's a brutal.
Yeah. So that's a family feud. So that's a family feud that happened in that scenario. But I did read ahead a little bit in this book, and there's another family feud coming up soon. Different characters, but I'm thinking
song section or
yeah. I think in the pecan trees chapter, and so now I'm thinking that's one of the themes running through here, how these family feuds um, start off about one thing, but can end up sending us, in some different directions than, anybody even planned. I'm hesitant because I'm also thinking about these, these white boys, that the Ahmaud Arbery case, who were just convicted on a federal hate crimes charge in Georgia. And, and they were, family out doing what they did in their clannish way, not expecting the kinds of outcomes, the accountability that they now have to deal with. So, I'm just saying it's just interesting how you start out doing one thing you probably really shouldn't be doing, and it can just snowball in some really unexpected ways.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the other two chapters of ALE, what I liked was particularly the what's the name of it? The second one.
Deep Country.
Creatures in the Garden, or
Creatures in the Garden.
Anyway, the one where she's already down south and she's reconnecting with her old friends or childhood friends.
Bay and Buki.
Creatures in the Garden. Yeah.
Right.
That's what.
And so one of the things I didn't have a summer in the South kind of experience because I didn't have those kind of, except on my father's side, I didn't really have any deep Southern roots. Like my father's side of the family, they migrated from the Carolinas to New York, to Brooklyn, New York, right? But my maternal side, they had more, my grandmother, long generations of being DC, Washington, DC, and Maryland. I mean, not Maryland, Virginia roots. So if I went down south, it was to, well, not the deep south, right? It was to DC. And so when I was in high school, I remember a lot of my high school, the Black high school friends were saying, oh, I'm going down south for the summer. I'm going down south. And they would love the experience. And I always felt, wow, I'm missing out, because they just speak so highly of their experience and reconnecting to the roots. And I didn't feel that going to DC, I got that kind of experience, because DC is urban, right? Unlike the kind of experience that they described. And so Honorée, when she talked about those kind of experience, it was just made me reflect on how I had longed to have that as a young person, because my friends had had it. And the other thing that I saw with regards to that story was how she was hesitant to be down there because she didn't have her sisters, but then finally realizing the importance of reconnecting with childhood friends. And I think that that was a good takeaway for her with that, having that experience.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate your observations, Karen. That's cool. Well, I do have roots in the South, although my mom moved us up to Newark when before I was born, but I did have a chance to spend at least not a whole summer in Savannah, Georgia, visiting my aunt, which was a weird experience because it was so different from the city. And but I did have a chance to spend a whole summer with my brother when he was stationed in Quantico, Virginia, at the base, and it's just like a different world. And I think it's just so. I mean, it's about in the environment, because you can go anywhere, and if you got the wrong people around you, you have a bad experience, it's not healthy. right? But if it's healthy for you, then you do have that chance to make good memories and experience something different, because it changes how you think about things, how your imagination about how your life could be. And then you begin to compare things and take agency over, well, I appreciate this about this place and these people, but then I also see, a different side of it. And then, compared to where I normally, live and grow up. And I think that's really important for children, and young people, and then even old folks, right? Go see some stuff, have some new experiences and make some connections. Figure out where you're from and who your people are, and then, decide whether you want to still be connected to them, because some of them, that's a bad choice. Okay. But at least right? So.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciated the language that she used when she described, uh, the gardening and the chores, and yeah, I mean, it's different. You get to connect to nature, right?
Right.
Without interference from things that you have to do. You think you have to do, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So, did you and Michelle, were you all childhood friends? Did you all know each other?
No.
Because you from Newark, right? Also, Michelle?
Yeah, well, I'm from all over the place.
Okay.
My dad was an AME preacher, and so the AMEs believe in moving the preachers around. And my father was from the South, from the Birmingham area, but and his father was an AME preacher, and my father grew up moving around a lot. Okay. And so when he was a fairly young man, he moved out to California. And he didn't really want to have anything to do with the South after that. So he stayed in California for about 15 years. Oh. Met my mother when he was preaching and living in Kansas City. They end up going back to California, and me and one of my brothers were born there. Mm-hmm. And then all of the years that I was growing up, we were just basically moving east from Cali to this part of the country. But every summer, our summer vacations were cross-country trips from East Coast to West Coast and back again. Wow. Yeah, my father wanted to get away from the South. He never talked about, what his reasons were for that. We did do some summer vacations where we went south, but, as I recall, it was kind of like, a quick trip, a quick stop on the way someplace else. Right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm rootless, and I find I like something about Uncle Root's name. Okay. There's some kind of play going on there. Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, and then my mom was from the Midwest, from Kansas. And so I have mostly grown up, though, on the East Coast. New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland. So I always say I am from the United States.
Okay.
Okay. How did your mom? How did she like Kansas? And how did your family end up there?
Well, I lived in, as an adult, I moved to Missouri for about a year. I was in Kansas City, Missouri. And I learned then that people from that part of the country, which is, a pretty, like, fairly, I guess, country type environment, their idea of getting away from all of that and going to the big city is to go to California. So Missouri is a huge state. And if you're on the Kansas City western side of Missouri or any place west of that, then your goal is to get to California. If you're on the eastern St. Louis half of the state, your goal is to get to New York.
Wow.
So my mother, growing up in Kansas, was always scheming and dreaming about how she was going to get out of the little country town. She was born in Hutchinson, Kansas. So her first move was from Hutchinson to Kansas City, Kansas. So there's Kansas City, Kansas, and right on the other side of the bridge is Kansas City, Missouri. So she got a job as a school teacher in Kansas City, Kansas, and started going to a church in Kansas City, Missouri. And that's where she met my dad. Okay. And they got married, and then he was itching to get back to California, and that was her lifelong dream anyway. So yeah, she just wanted to get away. That's the answer.
Right.
She wanted to get out of the Midwest, and my father wanted to get out of the South. So they had a life of moving all over the country, anywhere but those two places.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's been interesting because being on Facebook, you start to find people, like I never really knew many people with the last name Odom growing up. My father had one older brother, and that older brother had one son. And that's like pretty much, I knew my grandmother on that side, but there just wasn't a lot of family. My mother's family, on the other hand, was huge, but they were always far away from where we were living, so I didn't get to know them very well. But, being on Facebook, they're like Odoms all over the place. And I don't really know if I'm related to them or not. Leslie Odom was just one of the guests on Finding Your Roots.
Oh, I saw that.
The Henry Louis Gates program. So I'm watching. I'm like, this might be my family story. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Right. That's right.
I didn't catch the beginning. Was his family from Kansas City or Birmingham?
No, I didn't really see what the connections might be, but there's so many gaps in what I know. My grandfather was from Florida. And I think he had a lot of relatives down there. So, so I think I have some Southern roots. I just don't know specifically who they are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know one of Leslie Odom's ancestors was a white man. And, and Gates was asking him, so did you think you were a descendant of a white man? And Leslie was like,
what did he say?
No. And which is how I felt years ago, maybe when I was in my 20s, and maybe I was high on watching the film Roots. And I wanted to try to do my Roots. And this is pre-computers, right? So I ordered this book where you could get your family history. So I get the book. I'm all excited. I open it up. And it's all of these European people named Odom.
Okay.
And I was like, well, this can't be right.
Okay, Odom is not an African name. But
it is an African name. That's the thing. Yeah. And when I was in college, there were several African students who said to me, Odom is an African name, right? And it means different things, but it always has a connotation of strength. Like one definition is mighty oak.
Oh.
And then I had a teacher who told me that it's also a Korean name that means next to God. And I said, next to God. And he said, well, Miss Odom, God is the greatest.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, you're right.
Hey. Well, that's good. You take that over.
Second place.
Right. You don't want something that means stinky left foot, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. There's so much to learn when you start to do this Roots thing.
Definitely.
So I have always, had a bit of envy, I guess, Karen, for families that have these kinds of connections, where they can go spend the summer with grandma and all their cousins, because that is something I don't have.
Yeah, so I think those with the early chapters, that's what I walk away with, appreciating those family connections and roots and the childhood friendships, because those are important as well. And the summer fun during that time frame in the South. So.
What I did also, though, relate to was, Jeff had a heart attack, and both of my parents died of heart attacks, but my father had several heart attacks, for the big one. So so as I'm reading that aspect of the book, I'm kind of getting my heart ready for Jeff to die, because because it could happen.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Coco did kind of lay it on poor Ailey when she asked her, if you think he's gonna, he's gonna die. He's a black man, he's overweight, he's stressed out, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought one thing that was what I liked in the song portion was the reappearance of the spirit in named himself Joe, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in the vision that Beauty slash Agayuh,
Aggie,
yeah,
Aggie, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, guy, yeah,
yeah,
Uh-huh.
has, and what the vision that she sees, in this um something she'd never seen before, cotton plant she described as white, you know rose, between dirt, and then the pain of the middle passage, the people
Mm-hmm.
on wooden planks in the ocean with chains, and she couldn't help them. I
Right.
thought
Yeah.
that was interesting,
yeah.
and I was hoping to see, some kind of correlation in Ailey's story somewhere, but not yet, I
Right. Yeah. Not
guess.
yet.
So it would be nice to see,
Yeah, but
is Ailey or someone going to have this second sight or whatever it is, in
Right.
her
Yeah.
story.
right, yeah, but who was it that had the long-haired lady? Was Ailey, right?
Oh
That was
yeah, that was
causing her to
Alec.
pee in the bed.
Oh yeah, that's right. When
Oh
she was
yeah.
little, that's right. And then
Oh,
she
that might
stopped
be
coming
her.
to
Yeah.
her.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, ladies, I have to get off, and I will see you all next week. And
Oh,
so right, we're on next week.
mhm.
Yes, we're on next week. We have the chapters.
It's happy
It's,
birthday.
it's the next three, I believe. Happy
Right.
birthday, Pecan,
Trees.
trees, and altered story.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And tonight, I'm going to send you an invitation. It's called Cluster 3. So
Cluster
you just
three.
need to join that group. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All righty. Okay. See you.
See you
All
I'll
later.
see you
right.
next week. Bye bye.
Have a
Okay.
good week.
Okay.
Okay, Gio. Anything else? I mean, we don't have to beat a dead
Uh,
horse.
okay, we don't have to, but I just love that in Creatures in the Garden, when Ailey had to get so much permission to go hang out with her two friends. Yeah, grandma had to call,
Yes.
grandpa had to call mama, and then back and forth. And who what? And then 20 minutes on the phone. And then everybody threatened the lives of these two boys. and,
Yes.
and her mother said, "Don't make me come down there and kill him and hide the body." And have to hide
Right.
the body. I'm like, oh my God.
Right. Right. Right.
I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, yes, but
And
that's how we
I
feel,
mean,
right?
this is I do think this is something of a feminist text. We should probably be doing Find the Feminism.
Oh yeah.
Remember we did that with one of the other books, When and Where I Enter. But so I would say that's one of those situations where, you know, girls have to go through all of this drama and trauma um, to protect themselves, to learn how to protect themselves from the boys who are just treated as if they have no capacity to control, their own behavior. And so it becomes the responsibility of the girls, and girls, generally speaking, so much more responsible, but we're taught to be responsible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
true. Because we bear the the brunt of something going wrong. No.
Right. Right. But in more modern generations, feminist thinkers have started kind of shifting that focus to, well, yeah, we should be teaching the boys too.
Yeah.
No means no.
Well, look, Ailey was trying to set something up
Ailey
there
was
for
saying
Chris,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And then she kind of had like a reputation of turning people in. She like telling on people. Like,
yes.
I think she better have some condoms in her pocketbook. Okay, she gonna be doing this.
Right.
Because Chris will be in trouble with her. No, that's right. Ah, well, I enjoyed these chapters.
Yeah, I did too. And and it did feel like the writing kind of slowed down to match the pace of the rhythm in Deep Country. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I was just imagining that. But that's kind of how it felt to me.
Well, there was a lot more dialogue instead of just, exposition. So I think that helped a lot. And you had more characters introduced with their point of view, sort of. So, yeah, I thought that was nice. That was nice. It held my interest, So,
what did you think about that snake killing Granny?
That was so, well, okay, yeah, that was so Southern. Killing snakes, okay, praying over it. Now, hey, that's maybe so.
Yeah, that's the part. I was like, really?
Yeah, you know what? I could imagine that because the snake wasn't poisonous, but he got. He belonged to the wrong family.
Right.
So I think the prayer was more for, Granny, I'm sorry I had to kill you. So let's pray over you kind of thing. Then, for the snake, really. But, that was kind of sweet. It was kind of sweet.
Uh-huh. But they don't eat no possum.
I thought that was interesting because that is, I'm like, okay, these some different kind of black people. I didn't even know rabbit was in the rat family, but, if you see anything with ears and a tail, it could be in the rat family.
Right.
But I know possum and squirrel are very greasy. I would never eat them. But if you're hungry, you're going to eat everything. So I'm sorry. I just love me some Bugs Bunny with brown gravy and rice. So that rabbit would not have lasted in my work. Like, come on in here and eat some. Eat some of my cabbages. I got something for you.
I don't think I've ever had rabbit. I eat very plain. I told you my mother was from the Midwest. I eat very plain, bland, exciting kind of food.
Michelle, you're telling me that you have that seasoning deficient disorder.
Yes.
Yes. SDD, you got SDD.
But because my daddy was a preacher and he was from the South, okay, and the black ladies in the churches were always trying to cook dinner for him and his family, then I do have a real appreciation for soul food.
That worked out for you, yeah.
I had to get these pounds from somewhere. It wouldn't have been from my mama. I can say.
Oh my goodness. I was like, I can only imagine it, when I think of Kansas, all I can think of is, the Wizard of Oz and miles of prairie. Why did they go out there?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of prairie. Actually, her family's history is rooted in Kentucky. And so it's just kind of like when you, the more you learn about family migration patterns, like for the Great Migration, you had the big group that went north and you had a big group that went west. But at the time, my great grandfather when slavery ended, now I don't know if he escaped slavery, I'm not sure I know that, but when slavery ended, the family was in Kentucky, and he ended up following a group that went to the Midwest. So there are a lot of family on my mother's side in Kansas and Missouri. And then he ended up doing very well, owning lots of land and various kinds of businesses in that part of the country until the crash of 29 wiped them out. But I think it was just that sort of like the gold rush mentality that, there was this open land, this available land, and you could go and make a go of it, if you were inclined. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you, does he have any memoirs? Did he write about his experience or no?
No, but my older brother has done quite a bit of family research, and he found several news articles from the 1915s into the 1920s about my grandfather, whose business was called Isaac. My great grandfather, whose business was called Isaac Butler and Sons, and so my grandfather was his son, one of his sons. And he ran certain parts of some of the businesses, and another son ran some of the other businesses. And, that's how they did it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I guess there's not going to be the memoir, bio until I write it.
Yes. Add that to your list. 999 items.
There's too much stuff on my list.
Oh, but that's
so yeah.
That's cool.
Well, okay. So don't forget, if you feel like stopping by Sunday.
Okay, I haven't gotten the book, so I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I don't join, I definitely listen.
And Leon, I've known Leon as long as I've known Vanita.
Oh wow.
So yeah, They both, these are my childhood friends.
Okay.
From Trenton.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, G.O. I will see you next week, reading our story together.
That sounds good. It's a date. Take care of yourself.
See you later.
Bye-bye.